The court is ready to hear the case of the New York Post photographer R. Umar Abbasi, who captured an image of a doomed man, Ki Suk Han, as he tried to crawl up from the tracks in the brief period of time before the train hit him. Ethical editors, being that you guys have the burden of proof in today's case, we'll start with your case in chief. Ms. Hu, opening statements, please.
As the editor, I do recognize how this can be seen as unethical to publish, but our job is to tell the story of New York. This is a story that affects all of New York, as taking the subway is something that everyone here has in common. There's no way to avoid this reality, and the image that was shared is what we use to cover the tragedy since it sticks with readers so long after it's been shared. Following this, though, it was not published on the front cover, which eliminates everyone seeing it immediately. Due to the placement being inside, it gave us the opportunity to write the warning that appears before the image regarding a sensitive photo. In the photo, the victim's face wasn't shown, which was the only editing done to it by it being blurred. It can still portray emotion to someone, but it still treats him with respect and dignity, like the NPPA Code of Ethics says to do. Continuing with their Code of Ethics, they state that a visual journalist's primary role is to report visually on the significant events and varied viewpoints in our common world, and that photographic and video images can reveal great truths, as well as exposing wrongdoing and neglect. That's exactly what this image does. Although what happened in this image is unfortunate, it shows the reality of what's happening in New York. Throughout the years, photos convey emotion and stick with readers more than words. This photo can open up many gates for those in New York. It can bring awareness to subway safety, the surroundings, and also start conversations about what someone could do if they were a bystander in this type of tragic event.
Thank you, Ms. Hu. Mr. Klein, your argument?
Your Honor, this photo is most certainly newsworthy, as any other image would not capture the magnitude of the moment. This is very impactful in New York City, as this image can create thoughts in those who take trains, for example. It can do so in terms of impact, prominence, timeliness, and emotional impact. The only image that can match this one's journalistic importance is one of the man's corpse, but that is graphic imagery. If that corpse image was published, those who were close to that man would feel even more sorrow. The New York Times would face ethical repercussions from the audience for potential disregard for their feelings. Thus, the image up on the screen is a better alternative. The photo is tasteful in its coverage of this event, as it sparks discussion about what happened at the event and what could have been done to help out the victim, for example. Sure, the journalist could have helped, but why not anyone else? As gruesome as this photo may be, it is not sensationalistic, as it does not alter the story's accuracy. Also, there is no blood, only someone who is doomed but still with us in the moment, which makes the photo not graphic. The Times is obligated to publish this photo, as the NPPA Code of Ethics advocates for being comprehensive and contextual, which a Times article does to support this image, and this is not a stage opportunity. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Ms. Johnson, closing argument?
Your Honor, I believe that we're asking the wrong question here. The other side will argue that the inclusion of this photo lacks taste and moral value due to its upsetting nature. Technically, they have every right to do so. But ethics is significantly more complex than whether or not something is nice to look at. The MTA services over 3 million people daily, year-round. In 2023, 97 people were fatally struck by subway train cars. This is a danger not unknown to New Yorkers. In fact, the intercom warns you to please stand away from the platform edge at every stop, along with multitudes of signs in and out of the train cars. Yet accidents still happen. Death is news. Tragedy is news. It serves a public interest, telling truths about the world we may not see firsthand. The media's duty is to keep people educated, better preparing them to make informed decisions about their daily lives. For argument's sake, I'd like to apply end-based thinking to this case. As journalists, we have a duty to serve the best interests of our audience. We must consider all the stakeholders in this story, the MTA, the man who died on the subway tracks, and the viewers who will read the story in the coming days. The goal of teleology is to consider which outcome would create the greatest good for the most amount of people. But what else can be considered the greatest good more than public safety? We recognize the grim nature of this story, especially when capturing a person's last moments. As iterated in the SPJ Code of Ethics, one of the principles of good journalism is to minimize harm. By thinking with the end in mind, we get closer to that goal. The subway is a hectic place. Thousands of people with their own schedules and agendas having to compromise just enough to get to their destination. By demonstrating the reality of this victim pushed onto the tracks, what we are offering is opportunity. Fellow passengers have the opportunity to do their due diligence and watch out for one another. Presenting this unfortunate truth gives people knowledge that informs their decisions as they ride the train today, hopefully making better decisions tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Ethical counsel. Unethical counsel, your case in chief whenever ready. And Mr. Coach, please proceed with your opening statement.
Your Honor, I simply cannot understand how one with a sound mind, conscience, they can say that the capturing of this image, let alone the publishing of it, could be permissible in any way, shape, or form. Would you agree?
I agree.
Thank you. At what point do we take our professions to the level of being more important than another person's life? If a line cook saw a man bleeding out next to him but continued flipping burgers, would we say it's okay because he was doing his job? If poor Squidward was bleeding out and SpongeBob just watched him die? Are you a Krusty Krab employee?
I'm not.
Are you?
No.
I am not one either, but I would say no. Allow me, Your Honor, to give us the brass tacks here. The SPJ Code of Ethics, the real Code of Ethics. It tells us to show compassion to those affected by news coverage. Must the family of this poor man see him, clawing for his life before it's lost? Must the man's last image in his head be someone photographing him? Where's the empathy here? This is not serving the public. Reporting on bad news, sad news, yes, it is a part of journalism. However, having the ability to stop bad news from happening is a greater good than simply reporting on it. The reporter should be fired. He is not the kind of man that deserves a job where people's well-being is in his hands. Newsworthiness must occur naturally, and this coward of a reporter caused it. This is not seeking justice. This is not seeking to do good. This is seeking to cherry-pick an image that will shock people, and it is a despicable act of negligence that we shan't stand for. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Ms. Winograsco, your argument, please.
Your Honor, I would like to emphasize the ethical issue of exploiting this man during his final moments. The image shows a man moments before death, and he is clearly suffering and in distress, unable to save himself while having his photo taken by a journalist. As the SPJ Code of Ethics states, journalists should minimize harm. This photo does the exact opposite by putting the victim's family in emotional distress, knowing that their son could have been possibly saved if the photographer had been using better judgment. The photo is disturbing not only because it shows a man in his final moments, but it also highlights the journalist's choice to prioritize capturing the tragic scene over taking action to save a life. The decision to photograph such a moment rather than assist reflects a failure to prioritize human life above the demands of sensational reporting. If the journalist had used the time he had wasted on taking the photo to help this man, the outcome may have been different. The image was not only disrespectful to the victim, it was disrespectful to the family and to the public, and such actions should result in termination from the position. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Winograsco. Mr. Keene, your closing argument.
Your Honor, with all due respect, on what planet is watching a man die with your very own eyes okay? If we look at this situation with teleological based thinking, then helping the man off the subway tracks would do the greatest good. Taking a photo for a newspaper article for others to see is not doing more good than saving a man's life. The end of taking this photo just does not justify the means. Is this image really showing those who live in New York City anything they don't already know? If someone is walking backwards toward an open window, should we take a picture of them falling out of that window, or should we let them know it's there? Rest in peace, Mr. Chubs. One of the SPJ Code of Ethics is to be responsible. And Your Honor, there is no responsibility in taking this photo. The time used to take this photo could have been used to attempt to save his life. This image does not provide the public with any additional information about the story. It can be very clearly understood that the man fell on the subway tracks without an image of him holding on for dear life. The ethical side mentioned that 97 were fatally struck by the subway in 2023. But did you guys know that New York City's population was 8.336 million in 2022? That's 0.000001164% of the population. This is not a problem that needs awareness. It's a problem that barely exists. Your Honor, this is a simple question with a very simple answer. For all the reasons that myself and my co-counsel have laid out, the publication of this image is clearly unethical. And Your Honor, I just think you did a great job today. So I hope you take our argument into consideration and make the right decision.
Thank you, Mr. Keenan. Unethical counsel. I do appreciate your guys' argument today. With everything being said in today's case, I tend to make a lot of decisions when it comes to my rulings. You'll see that in today's case brief. I tend to favor arguments with more humor, one that potentially favors some sort of greenery, but also I am very biased against the New York Post. And so ultimately I rule in favor of the unethical counsel in today's case.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Councilman.
Unethical! Ah!